off-season circumstances, and we talked about yesterday, just positions of need, biggest positions of need, obviously. But one of the things you also need to figure out is there's players on this team. As much as we've had a lot of conversation, this is a pretty talented team, and you've got guys that are going to become free agents. And so,
more than 10, double digits, right?
Yes, sir, absolutely. I count 14 that you probably need to talk about. But let's just kind of bounce through some of these and kind of see which of these free agents you want to return, want all those things. You get involved. 877-881-1053. You can also see our smiling faces by searching 105.3 The Fan on YouTube or going to twitch.tv/DallasFanCam.
I'm glad you're going over this because it's making people wonder how to fix this thing. They went 12-5 3 years in a row.
That's true.
And you're like, okay, we just can't roll out the same thing again. You sort of can, but you might want to add to it. And if you're going to add to it, maybe somebody needs to go.
Okay, well, let's start with one of your starters this season, an emotional leader on this team and a long-time guy. When he's healthy, he's great. Sometimes he's not healthy. This year, pretty damn healthy. His name is Tyron Smith, plays left tackle for UCA. How do you view him as a free agent? Because he's in an interesting position. I mean, you've already had to kind of, I don't want to say strong arm, but kind of strong arm him into like putting more money on the table so that you can continue building this program a little bit better. How do you view him, especially with him still, when he's playing, being a high caliber player, honestly, probably a Hall of Famer, but also getting older and that risk of injury?
I think they figured something out this season with Tyron. One of the things is I think you won't have to pay him way too much crazy money because he's not going anywhere else. He's either going to retire or keep playing.
Okay. And
I think the solution that they found this year was to not have him practice. You follow me?
Yeah.
He had tremendous Pro Football Focus numbers. He had tremendous results while he was playing, and he actually played more than most people thought he would. Again, I know what you're saying about he's holding the team hostage. You got to get somebody in there. Well, you haven't gotten anybody in there yet. That doesn't mean you can't still draft somebody or try to bring somebody in, but until he falls off completely and he's not asking for crazy money, you ride that horse till he drops, especially knowing you just don't have to practice him during the regular season.
Yeah, look, it definitely felt like they figured something out to get him to play a good amount of games this season. And when he was playing, he was still some facsimile of the Tyron Smith that we've always known and loved, right? And so with that being the case, like it does feel like Tyron Smith is one you keep, especially under the circumstances that, it does not get unruly on the cost sheet, right? Like I think that's already kind of got him in that place. And I tend to believe in the ways that you do that like it's going to be here or he's probably done.
Yeah.
But I mean, obviously one thing I always try and think about is money is a proxy for respect. And so I don't know that you could cut that check a little too far at that point, but
I've even heard that maybe they pay him by the game. You follow what I'm saying? I'm not saying
just a really incentive laden contract as opposed to.
Yeah, in other words, he gets, top tier, all pro, left tackle money, but you get paid by the game. Not that he's going to go out there, beat down and hurt, but at the same time, it makes sense for everybody. The other thing, I think last year at this time, everybody's like, well, Tyler Smith, he's ready to be that left tackle. You have found out that Tyler Smith is a really good left guard. Leave him where he is. Okay, leave him where he is. If you still, and I'm telling Will McClay, still look and kick tires and find you a left tackle. But in the meantime, you ride Tyron until he drops. That's what I would do.
Especially when, it's one of the basic tenets we understand of the modern football, right, in the NFL, is that left tackle is a very, very important position.
Yes, it is.
You're getting good play there. I think it's good. And it is nice that you do have Tyler Smith there, that if you do need to go to left tackle, and I know this season they did not want to make that move, but there was a point in time where this organization absolutely viewed Tyler Smith as your left tackle of the future, and I think he could still very possibly be that if you needed him to. But I think that offers some levels there that's nice.
I'm going to give you one more example on this. And
yes,
again,
sir.
This is just insights for Tolos listening, because we got different Tolos texting in. Keep Tyron. One of the things we learned with Zach Martin, there was talk that Zach Martin was going to be a tackle, and they made him a guard.
Mm-hmm.
And Zach Martin said, that's it. Don't ever make me a tackle again. He's going to the Hall of Fame as a guard. So I'm looking at Tyler Smith as left guard, and I'm like, y'all better leave it alone.
Though, I mean, ultimately, I think what will determine is if they want to, right? But I think one of the things that could determine that is once you get to that time, once you need to make that move, if you're looking up and you go, are there tackles that are good or are there guards that are good that we could, figure out? Because I think that will help you determine. I think that position flex, as this organization has liked to use in the past, gives you an opportunity to have creative solutions going forward. But this year it feels like Tyron Smith probably would be one that you want to keep around. How about this? Tyler Biadasz, your starting center this year. He comes up off of the end of his rookie deal. Is that something that you're interested in keeping Tyler Biadasz around?
Only if you have to. And I'm only saying that because he's been serviceable. I wouldn't say, don't get me wrong, I think we're spoiled. I think we've had tremendous center play by the guy who came before him, who also went to Wisconsin, who retired early because of that condition he had.
The Guillain-Barré syndrome for Travis Frederick.
Travis Frederick, I think, spoiled us because we saw exceptional play, but not only exceptional play, we're talking about leadership. He was the leader of that offensive line. And Tyler Biadasz has just been serviceable. I don't think he's been a failure. I don't think he's been a bust. I just think that maybe you can upgrade that position.
It's tough because you'd be punching a hole in your offensive line,
and you have no depth.
Right? He's been average. Brock Hoffman is still on your roster, but I don't know if people feel comfortable enough to put Brock Hoffman in there. Our friends at Blogging the Boys, their perspective on it is he's average, played average to maybe slightly above average, and probably shouldn't be too costly. And so the idea of adding another need to this team, maybe, I guess you could say unnecessarily, might not be the best way to go. But okay, there's Tyler Biadasz. This one I find interesting because Tony Pollard just played on a franchise tag for $10 million. However, you could look at the 2023 season as a disappointment for him. But you look at it, he's 12th in yards, just flat out yards.
I wasn't disappointed because I knew what he could do and what he could not do. There were so many other people who wanted to make him something that he wasn't, which was a feature back. Tony Pollard told me when he first got here, and I asked him about it every single year because everybody kept saying he needs to get the ball more. He has never been a feature back in his entire career, whether it's high school, college, or pro. And I always thought that if you're going to keep Tony Pollard, you've got to use him as a situational back. Yeah, you can start him, but you got to have somebody do the things that Zeke used to do, whether it's Zeke or not. Somebody. Right now they're saying, bring in King Henry. I don't care who you bring in. I think you'll get the best out of Tony Pollard, the Tony Pollard that you saw 2 years ago.
If he's in a tandem.
If he's in a tandem.
And to be fair, that feels
and there's nothing wrong with that.
That feels to be the way that most NFL running back situations operate, is having
look at
multiple guys who
Cleveland.
can do the job.
Look at Cleveland.
Now I think his SPO track or average, I think the average market value for what it seems like Tony Pollard is $6.6 million, which is clearly not that $10 million, but it's a little bit of change. Would you feel comfortable having Tony Pollard back on just kind of like an average deal, considering the way that you viewed it in the season that, you did not view it as a disappointment, CA?
I wasn't disappointed. I was just looking at everybody shaking my head saying, you should have learned. You should have known.
And this is interesting because from the 682, someone says draft a feature back. From the 214, draft another back. They're a dime a dozen. And I do think that you need to address this running back situation by adding more to it. But
and I think that might be the way. No, but I know.
No, I'm saying, but for Tony Pollard,
let me explain the way you would do.
Please
this.
do.
The solution on your running back situation is simply this: you pay him whatever the minimum is, and I think he would take that because he's not the kind of guy that wants to be a feature back somewhere else. He is not leaving because he doesn't get enough carries over here. You follow where I'm going with this? He's not trying to be the all-time leading rusher. He's not trying to gain 2,000 yards in one season. That's not his mentality. He wants to go to a winning team or play for a winning team. He's very comfortable at the start. With that being said, the solution is to draft a running back who's on a rookie deal where you don't have to pay him a bunch of money. And you're not going to draft somebody in the first or second round, so it definitely will not be big money.
But then I feel like you probably,
you draft somebody who is a feature back. Yeah, and again, that doesn't mean you start him. Feature back does not mean you start. It's about who carries the ball in which situations. That's what I call feature back.
I understand what you're saying, CA. The question I'm asking is then, you make sure to retain Tony Pollard is what you're saying.
That's what I'm saying.
The only thing that I do have a question about is like, look, man, I understand that he is, he does not seem hard to please, Tony Pollard. He seems like he's very much
very laid back.
Laid back. However, people don't get into this league just to play. Like, obviously, you're trying to earn this. You're earning your living, and while this iron is high, you do need to strike. I do wonder if
I don't know if his
market value is there.
It's kind of like Dan Quinn right now. His market value isn't the same it was 2 months ago. I don't think Tony Pollard's market value is the same it was a year ago.
Okay.
And with that being said, I think that limits his options. And I also think because, again, he likes his situation, and he's not trying to be a feature back. I think you can get it for the price you want.
Okay. And look, that'll be something that your front office absolutely needs to manage, right? Like this is where being real, bring real.
And if he doesn't want that money,
matters.
Bye-bye.
Okay.
Like they say when you get off the airplane, bye-bye.
All right, let's get into this one real quick, and I feel like we'll have to bring this back around tomorrow as we continue evaluating your free agents. But one guy that we talked about and that the franchise talked about as one of your acquisitions that they just happened to make before the season. His name is Stephon Gilmore. You traded for him.
Yeah.
And
this is tough.
An outside cornerback, but he's 33 years of age. And he will be next season, he'll be 34, right? As an outside cornerback, you saw him pick up an injury. I know the shoulder was bothering him at the end of the season, and he played very well for you, all things considered. However, you saw instances where you could see that he was not, he was losing speed compared to the field, and that's not necessarily like, I mean, he was 33 years old playing cornerback on the outside. That's going to happen a little bit. How do you feel about having Gilmore back, especially understanding the age? You should be having Trayvon Diggs back. Like, what is your perspective on Stephon Gilmore?
You just mentioned the key. You're going to have Stephon Diggs back. You'll have Deron Bland here. I think you don't have to utilize him as much. His wisdom in that locker room, his presence in that locker room, all these guys, the younger guys, they look up to him and his best friend on the team, Brandon Cook. Brandon Cooks is the offensive, not player, but the offensive guru in the locker room, the old head in the locker room that Gilly is for the defensive guys.
Yeah, that veteran leadership.
The veteran leadership
also has some
you mentioned the shoulder. The shoulder didn't happen until the last game of the season.
Yeah, that's right.
And what happened towards the last month of the season, I think Bland got overexposed and he couldn't travel. When I say got overexposed, you didn't want him on your best guy because they exposed him to a limited degree. In other words, they threw at him a couple of times and it didn't look pretty. In other words, Bland, it was like after middle of November, not that they figured him out, but it's like, wait a minute, they started picking on him a little bit. And then Dan Quinn was smart enough to say, Gilly, you are a route reader. You can handle this. And so they would have Gilly travel. And I think in his limited role, you follow where I'm going with this? Limited role, if the price is right, which I think it would be because he's older and he knows he can't get big money anywhere else, and he loves his situation. Again, this is all about, do you love your situation? If you've made your money, you're older, you like your situation, you're comfortable in the locker room, your best friend's playing over there, his family, your family are both close, why not? So if the price is right, I'm bringing him back.
Yeah, especially if it's going to be a tight situation trying to manage.
And
all
it's only
of these
because
things
Diggs is back. Don't get me wrong. If Diggs weren't back, I'd say he's too old. We've got to have help. Your help is already here. In fact, they're restructuring Diggs' contract as we speak. Him and Zach Martin. That's the word out of the stars.
Which is going to be necessary to. I mean, they're already as of right now projected to be over the cap. So they're going to have to do the creative accounting to get themselves in the black just to start working.
And this is not something new to them. They've been knowing this for years. And they knew this when they extended Trayvon Diggs, and they knew it with Zach Martin when they got his deal done. Remember, Zach Martin had to hold out? Who knew that Zach Martin would have to hold out, right? He missed part of training camp. Like, what the hell? How you not play Zach Martin? But they messed around, and they effed around and found out.
Yeah.
Gave him his money.
From the 214, sign Gilmore, obviously slide Bland back into the slot is what someone says. Going back to talking about the running back situation, get maybe a day 3 running back, 4th round in particular.
Sure.
They say DeMarco Murray's type in particular.
A feature back.
Now, it'll be interesting to see.
Dirty yards.
Already keeping up with the draft show on DallasCowboys.com. I know that Dane Brugler jumped on today, and one of the things that they were talking about is the idea that, this is going to be a similar running back class, or probably looks like a similar running back class to last year's, just without the top end of like Gibbs and Bijan Robinson at the top. But what that does allow for is maybe some mid-round, running back talent to be there. And so
somebody said take a chance on this wounded running back from UT.
Wait, who are we talking about?
The one that was the starter who got his knee hurt. I can't think of his name off the top of my head because I went to OU. And Carter Freeman knows all these names.
He's probably listening on his way home like, you idiot. Why can't you remember his name? And my brain is failing me in this moment. I apologize. Okay. I'll have it right. I'll have it about 2 minutes into the break.
1053. All the UT alumni, y'all know.
And here on the 940, they say, sorry, boys, Gilmore's coming to their 49ers.
I would not doubt it. The 49ers be stealing what they need. They get what they want. They make those moves. They augment their lineups. They bolster their rosters, which is what I'm mad at Stephen Jones about. Middle of the trade deadline, didn't do nothing. Oh. Jonathan Brooks, thank you, sir, from the 469.
Baxter is the
blowing
young
up.
man.
Appreciate all the Tolos texting in 325 and 214. All of y'all.
Yeah, that's the freshman that came back. See, we appreciate y'all listening. And yeah, from the 817, they say Blake Corum all day, not the one you're thinking of. Blake Corum is interesting because
Jamal Charles is old and retired. I see you 214.
Blake Corum is a dude who's had a lot of carries in college, and that always is something that's a little scary. But regardless, it'll be interesting to see. It's a lot of off-season things to consider, and we've only just scratched the surface
because team building is a sport.
That's right, and we've only just scratched the surface of the free agents that you have to start with and evaluate.